Well, Penguin publishers, not the pick up a penguin type, but the publishers, recently made the silly decision to include what has been dubbed a trigger warning at the beginning of new editions of PG Wodehouse's legendary tales of Jeeves and Worcester. In the spirit of PG Wodehouse politeness, they rather bluntly rejected the idea of it being a trigger warning and corrected us, saying it was a, quote, contextual note, unquote. Well, I'm now joined by PG Wodehouse admirer William Sitwell. William, thank you so much for joining me from your book-lined study that looks as if Sir Watkin Bassett would be comfortable there. Are you in favour of these trigger warnings?
No, not at all. I mean, the sort of people who would enjoy PG Wodehouse don't need a warning such as this. You know, he was a great artist. He was one of the great writers of the 20th century. People like him and Evelyn Waugh, they don't need warnings. What they need is encouragement. People just need any opportunity that there is possible to read them. And you know, there is no greater writer, I think, in the history of literature who can move people in and out of rooms better than PG Wodehouse. The comedy aside, he is such a great artist because of the way that he brings colour and clarity and brevity, his use of the English language. And to issue any kind of warning other than just to say you're in danger of laughing yourself to death yes. is trivial, is ridiculous.
I rather agree with that. It needs a warning that you may laugh out loud in a public place and people will think you're a bit potty. That's the one warning it does need. But there was an excellent piece in The Telegraph by, I think, Michael Deacon, saying that if you're buying a book that was written in the 1920s, you know before you buy it that it's going to have different views and different values from those of 2023.
Yes, in fact, I was talking about this at the weekend because it's 100 years since Edith Sitwell, my great-aunt, performed Facade, which is what I call early white rap. It's poetry spoken to music. And people think these days it should come with trigger warnings because the language and some of the circumstances described might upset some people, some of the words and so on. But we're talking about something that came out 100 years ago. And I think it's always good to read around the subject. The more you know about a writer, the more you know about the context, the more that you'll enjoy it. So, you know, I would love to go and hear lectures on PG Wodehouse, although I have to say I'm always less interested in the writer than his art. And I think you can sometimes go down a rabbit hole worrying about the individual who crafted a piece of writing, and people often find they have problems with PG Wodehouse themselves. And I think that's, again, irrelevant, because what is relevant is the beauty of his art.
And one of the great things about the beauty of Wodehouse's art is that it draws on the greatest English writers. So there are all the quotations I know from Shakespeare really come from reading P.G. Wodehouse, and likewise from the King James Bible. Those were two of his greatest sources, which he then weaves in to comedy. It is an incredible achievement and such fun as well. And this is what's boring about Penguin, is they want to take the fun out of it.
There is no writer that I've ever came across who can describe a bar and how an individual can be drawn into a bar because of a barman and the idea of a drink. There is no writer in the English language who describes the weather so beautifully. I mean, the sun is always shining, the birds are always tweeting, grand houses always look beautiful, the gossip, the intrigue is always there, the machinations between staff and the crazy toffs. And you know, people read this and think it's some sort of form of history, but it's complete fantasy. But it's also a very kind of humour. You know, the scrapes that people get into, I mean, they're devilish in some ways, and he sets up these extraordinary situations that people have to try and escape from. But it's a nice humour as well.
It's a nice humour. This is why, actually, I prefer Wodehouse to Waugh, because it's always kind and uplifting.